Hi everybody, we are in week 3 of MPA594 as we prepare for our comp exam and continue to theory weave and move theory to practice. So in identifying a scenario consisting of one thing that needs to be changed in an agency, I'm going to be focusing on succession planning. So the need of change would be the city of Glendora needs to change their classification plan to implement a succession plan framework. This will increase employee retention, which will impact the community by providing skilled, enthusiastic public servants serving the community. So when people leave an organization, they take with them kind of that institutional knowledge, and that can impact how efficient an agency can be in serving the community. So in identifying the 3 themes of how I would make this change or how the organization would make the change is through management, leadership, and efficiency. So management would be, consists of how a group is controlled in order to accomplish this goal. Leadership is someone's ability to influence, motivate, and enable others to contribute towards an agency's success and accomplish this goal. And efficiency would be doing all of this by minimizing wasted resources, which is of course emphasized in public agencies. So taking a look at the first one, management, I really wanted to take a look at, obviously the big one would be Gulick and Paused Corp. And so the staffing model would really be highlighted here in that acronym. So as we're seeing from Gulick, he really focused on that division and coordination of work and how many workers should a boss have. And so if someone was coming in trying to look at succession planning, what the classification plan would look like and how those positions would fit in with each other, you would need management to look at how they can plan that work, organize, and staff that to make sure that it's efficient while still working towards the goal. Fail would tie in here as well with those functions of management. He focused on the success of an agency, which would be dependent on the administrative ability of the leaders versus his technical ability. So as they're managing the change, and then obviously those 14 principles of management, the division of work and authority of responsibility, aligning with Gulick as well. Weber can be tied in here because how can managers adjust thinking to take a look at the structure from a new view? So he focused on standardization, methodical procedures, constantly being reflected on and improved, and that should be the role of the manager. So we're trying to avoid that. It's always been done this way, or these are what the rules say, and not having flexibility. So I think that Weber can kind of tie in there to look at that structure from a different view and avoid that rigidity. And then I think that White can be tied in here as well. White talked about management as a profession and, directing purposeful public administration. So I think if you have management really focusing on that in their day-to-day workload, that's going to help to implement this change and move toward a direction of succession planning. And then taking a look at leadership, the first one I thought of was Chester Barnard. How will the functions of an executive impact this change? How will new structure create more work with job duty realignment? Will the leaders in an organization be taking on more work so that if there's fewer positions, but they have a higher capacity, they're responsible for more, and it creates that growth in leadership? So sometimes we look at that from senior toggles or a series like a management aid 1, 2, 3. And if those leaders have to take on more in the beginning, depending on how that person is qualified once they join an agency, Chester Barnard can kind of tie in with that, especially where he talks about the lines of communication. And so that formal and informal conversations and how that messaging would go through an organization. Maslow talking about how leaders can take a look at the needs of a workforce. So we're talking about his hierarchy of needs and how could this implemented change work around that model to create opportunities that fulfill those needs. So as they're kind of taking a look at what would keep a worker staying in one agency, how do we create these classifications and these positions that would keep someone here, they can tie in what those needs are and how those needs could be met. I kind of think that Riddle and Weber can be tied in here as well. So as we are seeing this new and changing workforce, how can you solve a need for change if they're not leaving because they're unhappy, if it's truly just an urge to experience something new? Could that be seen as a wicked problem? And then lastly, efficiency. There's a few theorists. Merton had talking about that strict devotion to rules hindering efficiency. So, what kind of personnel rules may be holding back this change? How can we look at being more efficient and having flexibility in the way that we conduct promotions, take on outside duties outside of a certain job classification, or reclassify? So, trying to modify the rules so they're not so strict and hindering the efficiency to meet this change and this goal. I think Graham Allison can be tied in here as well. What does the private sector have to offer that would draw someone away from the public sector? Is there more room for growth? Is there more flexibility in taking on special projects? How can managers incorporate private company strategies within the parameters of agency rules and regulations? And then obviously the big hitter for efficiency, Taylor looked at increasing productivity and optimizing the way we work. So how can this be done for managers to apply this method of optimizing workplace tasks as they realign these positions? And Leonard White, I always think of him when talking about utilizing resources efficiency. So how can we do this by not adding additional costs into the budget? How can we do this with minimal impact to the public? Because sometimes it's hard to add additional positions, show that in the budget, and explain how that's going to benefit the community. All right, thank you for watching. We are almost to the finish line, and I look forward to hearing your videos as well.